There's in the background, someone's got some wonderful country and western on. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and assembled company, welcome to the World Storytelling Cafe. And it is every other Sunday we have our worldwide story round, hosted by the wonderful and magnificent Mike Rust from Get a Word in Edgeways. And I have to get a plug in for Get a Word in Edgeways that are having their live and direct festival where everyone is meeting together next weekend. If you can get down to Much Wenlock, and I'm sure Mike will give you directions, go there. It is going to be the most magnificent festival of spoken word stories and all kinds of stuff. But tonight we'll have a story round. I'm going to disappear, so I'm going to announce the what's coming up in the next few days before I go. So on Tuesday, as usual, at 5 o'clock in the evening UK time, we have our International Young Tellers. On Friday, we have Baba C doing stories for children, and then yeah. So and then it starts again the following Tuesday. But all you have to remember is those two things. But if you can, get down to Much Wenlock this weekend. Mike Rust, I now leave the whole thing to you. And I am leaving to do what I have to do. I'm terribly sorry. Have a wonderful evening, folks. Bye.
Okay, see you, John. Right, so welcome to everybody here again. It seems 2 weeks have just flown past, and this time next Sunday, the festival will be over just about, and we'll be winding everything up, and hopefully we've had just a wonderful, wonderful fine time. The weather forecast looking good, and people are beginning to arrive. The international tellers are turning up Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm hoping that, I know Janet will be there, and I'm hoping some of the others will be there. I don't know if you're coming down, Rowan, for the day. I'd like to see you there if you could. Nice to see you, B. Right.
Hi, so, I've lost my camera.
Yeah.
I might have to go. I'll go out and come in again, but I've lost my camera.
Is that B talking?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll okay. Come back in again.
Okay, we'll be waiting for you. I'll just carry on.
Unfortunately, Mike, I won't be at the festival because I go to Italy on Thursday. So.
Oh, it's hard work, but someone's got to do it, haven't you?
It's tough.
Right.
Wish you all the very best. I know it would be wonderful. I wish I could be there, but I can't be two places at once. So.
Well, I'm sure you could if you tried hard enough. You are that famous. Now, come on. What are you talking about?
No, don't do it. I've done it, and it takes more out of you than it's worth.
Oh, I won't.
Right, so I'm going to start off. I don't often do this at this set, but I'm going to do it today because I've got a reason to do it. And the reason is this, because about 30 years ago, when we started up the original storytelling festivals and stuff, I told the first story at the first festival. Oh, there's B. There we go. I can see you now, B. Right. And because of what I do, Kath has asked me to do the first story at the new festival this year. So I was thinking I'd tell the same story as I told 30 years ago. And it goes like this. And I haven't decided to do this one yet. There's plenty of other stories I could do. But I was thinking, so I'm going to ask your opinion on whether you'll probably know the story or you'll know the answer to the story. So we'll see what we think. For once here, living in Shropshire, underneath the Wenlock Edge, there was a farm. And a farmer, he was there with his wife. He only had a little small holding. He didn't have much money, and he lived with his mum and dad and a little black and white dog. Now, he came in after doing all the hard work. They'd just been making the hay. It was this time of year. And his wife said, "You're going to have to do something. We've got nothing for breakfast in the morning at all. We've got no food in the house. You're going to have to take your bow and your arrow, and you're going to have to come back and go and fetch something for breakfast in the morning." As tired as he was, he looked at the three people he loved. He picked up his bow and he picked up his arrow, and he walked up onto the Wenlock Edge. And he was walking around. Anything would have done, a pheasant, a rabbit, a hare. you know, what's a squirrel taste like? Well, a bit like a chicken and nothing like a hedgehog. You know, it's things that anything would do, right? But what he saw in the distance, just as the sun was coming down, was the white unicorn. Now, the white unicorn we know lives here. Not many people have seen it, but I know someone who says she's seen it. And she was a young girl out with her father, and her father was one of the best poachers that you'll ever come across. But so there's white deers up here, but she reckons she saw the unicorn. And he saw the unicorn, and he think, I'm going to track that unicorn. And he was a good huntsman, and he tracked the unicorn through the forests, and the beech forests here, and the oak and the ash, and under the yew trees around. And as the unicorn was just trotting by, he hadn't seen him, and he went into the quarry down by Hope Bowdler. And he suddenly turned round, and he was in a dead end, and there in the gateway was the farmer huntsman with his bow and his arrow. And he picked up his bow, and he pulled the arrow straight back. And he was just about to launch the arrow when the unicorn spoke. And he said, you can take my flesh and feed your family, or you can take one wish with you. One wish. I will give you the one wish of the white unicorn. You can take that and let me go free. Well, the huntsman looked into the eyes of the unicorn, and the eyes of the unicorn looked straight back at the huntsman. And out of the unicorn's eye, there came a tear, because he thought this was his last seconds, the last heartbeats that he'd have on this earth. And the tears came down, and just there, underneath the front paws of the unicorn, came the white snowdrops. The white snowdrops, they're always here in the January and the February, but not in the July. And it was those very flowers, those beautiful flowers, the harbingers of the spring, I call them, that made the huntsman falter. And he looked down in the flowers, and he looked up at the unicorn, and he said, I'll take you one wish. And the unicorn went so close by him, he put his hand out, and he stroked the unicorn as he left. Well, on the way home, he knocked over a couple of rabbits, and he could skin them with his pocket knife as he was walking back. And he went in about 10 o'clock that night, and he sat down, and he told the story just as much as I told it to you. And he turned round to his wife, and he said, if you had that one wish of a white unicorn, what would you wish for? And his wife looked at him, and she went, husband, husband, husband. I'm nearly 40 years old. I have no children. We've had no children. It's been fun trying. You've never said anything. You've never blamed me. But I know that you've always wanted a son, and I can't give you one. If you've just got that one wish, please, please, wish for me to have a child and make that child a son. And the huntsman, he looked at his wife, who he loved dearly, and he said nothing. And he turned round to his mum, and he said, Mother, if you had that one wish, what would you wish for? And his mother stood up, and she said these words. Once I could see, and now I'm blind. Once I could see the stars and the sky. Once I could see the sun and not just feel. Once I could hear the moon and see the moon as it comes up at night, the different sizes and the different shapes of it. Once I could look into your eyes and smile at my son and know that my daughter-in-law is the most beautiful of all. Once I could see the fire, not just feel its heat. And once I could go to the lake and look into the lake at night and see the stars be reflected, and sometimes see the fish in the water. Once I could see, but now I'm blind. If you've got the one wish of the white unicorn, would you wish for me to see? And he nodded, and he looked at his father, and he just said to his father, if you had that one wish, what would you do, Father? Oh, he said, I've been poor all my life. Money doesn't solve all the problems in the world, but it solves a bloody lot of them. Wish for us to have money. Wish to have a great big house and servants and horses and estates. Wish for me to stand on the Wenlock edge and see the whole of the Oak Dale, and wish for me to own all of it. Wish for us to be rich. Rich to solve problems like blindness and no children. Money solves everything, or nearly everything. It's the most important thing of all. Wish for us to be rich. So there were the three answers. And depending on the audience, I'll give it straight away, or I'll ask them. But tonight I'm going to ask you fellas, so all unmute yourselves and then tell me what you do. If you know it, say nothing. If you
Nothing.
don't know it, tell me what you would do. If you put your hands up if you heard it before. Oh, that's pretty much all of you. I think it's only you, Rona. Well, okay, so he knew. So he stood up and said, I'll take the one wish of the white magical uniform. I wish to see my son lying in I wish to see my son lying in a golden cradle. So you got the three wishes in one wish. The one wish, three wishes, it's called. And that was the first story I told at the first festival. And in those days, 30 years ago, it was obviously been round the region, we would call it nowadays. But it's a beautiful little story and I like telling it. So I was wondering whether to tell that one again. So anyway, that's called the one wish, three wishes. Right, so we're going to go to Janet, then Keith, then Baba, then Rona. Okay, Fluella, who's just come in. Hello, Fluella, I've just seen you there. How do you do? Nice to see you here again. Right, so as always, I'll mute myself and shut up. B, you haven't muted yourself yet. Baba,
Sorry.
you're still unmuted. Baba.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, he's
What did you
frozen.
ask me? I'm
I
sorry.
think he's frozen.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, can you mute yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, Janet.
Yeah.
Okay, Janet.
Okay. Oh, Mike, I've always liked that story. I love clever and sentimental stories. They're wonderful. Thank you. You can tell that anytime. It's wonderful. But I'm not going to tell a sentimental story. I'm going to tell an origin story. An origin story which I understand is well known, probably by some people here, but certainly by the San Bushmen of the Namibian Kalahari Desert. It goes like this. It was hot, very, very hot. So hot that all the water, almost all the water, had evaporated, just leaving a few pools, a few pans of water. And by one of these pans of water sat a baboon. And the baboon, he had styled himself Lord of the Water. He was a big, robust creature with dark fur, a muzzle that was dark and dog-like. He had a huge jaw and strong, sharp teeth. He was a boisterous, fearsome creature. And he sat by his pan of water, guarding it. He always lit a fire with logs, and he would not let anyone, any other creature take water from his pan. High up on the rocks, there were two white creatures, not unicorns, Mike, but very, very equine in themselves. And they were looking down upon the sun-glinted water. They licked their lips. They felt the thirst in their mouths, and they made their way down to the pans of water. The baboon barked, "Away, go! This is my water. I am the Lord of the Water. No one touches it. No other creature touches it." And the first unicorn, I've said it, it was not a unicorn. The first white creature stepped back. This was the father, but the son was more bold, and he stepped forward. He stuck out his chest and declared, "This water is for all. Anybody can take this water." But the baboon screamed and barked back, "No, I am the Lord of the Water. This is my water. And if you want a sip of it, you must fight for it." the white creature didn't hesitate. He stuck his chest out further and shook his shoulders and made his way forward. And soon these two creatures were parrying. They were around each other, kicking up the dust. And the baboon, he was striking out. And they were wrestling, they were punching, they were biting. They were causing each other great distress until finally, the white equine creature, he kicked the baboon. He kicked him so hard that he flew through the air until he came down on his backside with a smack on the rocks, and he skidded across the rocks. And now you know why the baboon sticks his bum in the air and shows you that bald pink patch. But what about the other white creature? This was the original zebra, pure white and thirsty. He moved forward. He leant down to take the water, but the fight had left him bruised and battered and disorientated. He stumbled into the fire. The logs spun around. He fell, and his fur was singed. Now he was afraid, and he was hurt. Black and white striped, he galloped across the savannah, the Namibian savannah, where he still lives to this very day. But the baboon, well, he's on the rocks still, baring his teeth, shrieking and barking, and exposing his pink, bare bum to the world, so that he can get the soreness of where he skidded across the rocks relieved. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. That's lovely. Lovely story. Lovely, well told. A story a long way from Staffordshire, but still relevant.
Hi, indeed.
Lovely today. Right, so we go to Keith, then Baba, then Rona, then Donald. And B, put your hand up. Are you going to tell a story tonight, B? If you want to, put your hand up. Brilliant. You go after Donald. Okay.
Okay. In the UK, the nights are drawing in. We passed.
Yes, that is an old joke. Yeah.
We passed midsummer, and so the days are getting shorter. And so I'm learning this story, which is appropriate for this time of year. And apologies to my Scottish friends, but this is from Scotland, and I'm sure you'll all know it. Now, Jack was young, but he was also very poor. And he lived with his mother, and his father had died. And so they were just barely scratching a living. But Jack managed to get a job with the local farmer, the laird, the lord of the manor. But that laird was very, very mean and didn't pay Jack very much. But he loved his job as a shepherd. He was looking after the sheep on the hillsides, on the glensides. He just loved his job. Now, he just loved sitting on there, looking over the sheep and making sure they're okay and making sure they weren't far welted and rescue them if they were. And he would look over the valleys, and on the far hillside, he would see a great oak tree. Magnificent oak tree surrounded by other oak trees and silver birch. But also down in the valley, he looked down, he could see the river. And in the summertime, the salmon would be leaping out of the water, and you'd see their backs shining in the sunlight. But also in the deer, you would see deer in the valley as well. They will be there feeding. Now, Jack's mother, she helped to, with some of the income, she would gather some of the wool that came from some of the sheep. She would, maybe it had been caught on a thorn bush, on the stone walls, and she would collect it and card it, and then she would weave it, and she would make ganzes, she would make cardigans, and that which she would be able to sell, and just help to make a bit more money so they could eat and they could look after themselves. Now, Jack's mother, she at lunchtime would bring up some food, some bread and cheese in a basket. And one day they were sitting having their lunch, and she said to Jack that she'd had this queer dream, this odd dream the previous night about trees that were dancing. And she said that that reminded her of her father and mother, who told her that every 70 years, the trees would uproot themselves from the hillside and go dancing down in the valley. And it happened on Midsummer's Eve. And she said to Jack, now tonight is Midsummer's Eve. And so you look out for those trees if they're going to go dancing. Now, sometime later, there was a friend of hers called Mary, and she came up and said, hello, Jack. And they talked together. And she said to him, you just be careful, because I think the Lord of the Manor means you harm. You know, I saw him marching up and down inside the manor with a knife. Now, after Mary had gone, there were some birds that were twittering in the trees. Now, Jack could actually understand the language of the birds. And he asked the robin, what are you twittering at? What's everybody upset about? And the robin said, tonight is Midsummer's Eve, and the trees are going to go dancing. And we'll be shaken out of our beds and our nests, and so we're going off to the night. We hope that we can maybe get accommodation in the barn, if the owl will let us, but we are going to vacate our nest for tonight in case we get shaken out of our nests. Now, the Lord of the Manor then came up and crept up behind him. He heard a twig break, and the Lord of the Manor came up and said, what was the birds talking about? Because the Lord knew that Jack could understand the language of the birds. And Jack said, they were telling me that tonight, as it's Midsummer's Eve, that the trees are going to go dancing. And the Lord said, I'd heard about that. And that in their holes that they leave behind their birth pits, that there is treasure. And so I will come back tonight when it gets dark, when the trees have gone dancing, and I will collect some treasure. And you keep away, Jack, you keep away. Now, a little bit later, as it got dark, Jack was laying on his tummy, looking over the valley and over the glens. And there was a rumbling and a shaking of the ground. And the trees uprooted themselves, the great oak and the rest of the oaks and the silver birch, and they came down the valley and they were dancing around, whirling around, hand in hand, leaf in leaf, branch in branch, whirling around and having a wonderful time. Now, Jack remembered what his mother said about the treasure that was in the birth pits. But before he did anything else, the Lord came up and he went down to the biggest hole, and he was collecting all these silver and gold coins and rubies and diamonds. And Jack, he just went into a smaller hole left by one of the trees, and he collected some of the diamonds and diamonds and silvers, coins and gold. And he remembered not to, what his brother said, and not to take too much. Don't be greedy. But then he tried to get out from the hole and he couldn't get out. He was scrabbling up the side and he just couldn't get out. And then he heard a voice. It was Mary. Said, Jack, 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 come on, quick, get out of the hole because the trees are coming back. And he tried to scrabble up the side and he just couldn't get out. And then he remembered that his mother had given him a woolen rope with 12 loops in it. And he took it out of his satchel and he threw it up to the side, and Mary caught hold of it and held it very tightly, tied it to a tree, a branch of a tree, oh, well, a rock. The trees are all dancing. And he scrabbled up the side of the birth pit like a mountain goat. And there they were, safe and sound. But then they heard this rumbling and the shaking of the ground. And they knew that the trees were returning home to their holes in the ground. And they went over to the big pit where the Lord of the Manor was there, collecting up all the bits and pieces there, the gold and silver coins and the rubies and diamonds into his sack, and said, Lord, 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 come on, quick, get out. The trees are returning. But the Lord here was just busy collecting all this silver and gold that he just wouldn't listen. And so the trees came back dancing up the valley side and plonked themselves into their holes that they lived in. And the great oak buried the Lord of the Manor deep in its roots in the earth. And the Lord wasn't ever seen again. But Jack, he returned, and he had some silver and gold coins and a few diamonds and rubies. And the nephew of the Lord, who was much more generous, paid him more money for his shepherding, for looking after sheep. And so with his treasure and his increase in income, he was able to buy a lovely white cottage. And a little while later, Jack and Mary were married and lived in the cottage together with their mother. And so the three of them lived a very contented life from there on.
Well, thank you very much, Keith. Right. I've heard that story from many times, but I heard it from Duncan and from Stanley as well. And I think Aisha Dixon's
currently unmuted
as well. She's just 18. So, right.
Yeah, that's right, Stanley Robinson, yeah.
Yeah.
I've
Absolutely.
never heard that story. It's just beautiful. Thank you.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I'm pleased we're finding some stories you haven't heard, Valentina. Right, so we go to Baba and then Mona. Right.
Currently unmuted. Alt+A button.
World Storytelling Cafe with the lad there with the hat and the spectacles where it says World Story. I was just talking to you a second ago. You're not muted. Can you mute? Because there's a background noise if you don't.
محمد هذا صحيح.
Right, we're getting there. So, right, so we're over to you, Baba. So tonight's drawing out where you are as well, are they?
It's about, let me see, it's about 2:30 on the PM here.
2:30. We're just when the cricket starts over here.
Oh, wow. So I knew definitely which story I was going to tell until a couple hours ago, and then until 20 minutes ago. So what it is I accept that the ancestors, as people who have passed on, can communicate and guide us and influence us. Tomorrow marks the anniversary of the United States. But as you know, I celebrate Juneteenth, which represents the freedom of the last slaves after the Civil War. All that said has nothing to do with the story I'm going to tell. However, I do want, hold on, there, okay, excuse me. My monitor was telling me it was about to shut down. So I'm going to tell a story with apologies to James Weldon Johnson. James Weldon Johnson was a prominent poet and social advocate from 1871 to 1938. And he and his brother John wrote Lift Every Voice and Sing, which became the official anthem, national anthem of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. But he also wrote a poem called The Creation. I have been doing a version of The Creation, not knowing that he wrote this poem, but the version I tell comes out of the early South and in the days where you had to tell poems and songs in code if you were talking about certain people. So with apologies to James Weldon Johnson, this is my story about how butterflies came into being. In the time before time, when nothing had been created, and as far as the Creator's eyes could see, there was nothing to behold. And the Creator became bored because he had nothing to do. And so the great Creator stood upon what I don't know, but the great Creator stood and said, I am tired of nothing. And so with a mighty shout and clap of his hands, the Lord, the Creator of all that is, was, and ever will be, caused the stars to spring into being. And he gathered some of the light from the stars and he fashioned a ball and he flung it in the air, creating the moon. And then he gathered the heat from the stars that he created in the heavens and he gathered it together and flung it into air, and he created the sun, the moon, and the stars. But still, the Lord was bored, for now he could see nothing as far as the stars shone, and he could see the sun. So the Lord God Mighty decided that the sun would represent day. And with a clap of his hand, the light separated and the darkness separated, and you had day and night and day. But he was not satisfied. The great Creator said, I can do better than this. Yes, I can do better than this. And so gathering nothing from here and nothing from there and nothing, he began to roll and shape and mold, and he flung up a great dark sphere and he clapped his hands twice, and the sphere became the earth. But the earth was barren. And the Creator said, no, I can do better than that. And so the Creator stomped his foot down on the ground, created valleys and mountains. Oh, now he was getting happy because he had valleys and mountains. And the Lord Creator began to cry tears of joy. And when his tears fell, it became rain. And the rain made the oceans and the streams. And the rain made the pools. And the rains made the brooks babble. And he said, you know, I'm kind of enjoying this creating thing, but I can do better than this. And so the Creator of all that is, was, and ever will be, he gathered up an essence of himself and he blew it upon the earth, causing the winds to take shape. And he also caused there to be animals in the sky, animals on the land, and animals in the waters. Oh, he was feeling good about this. He said, oh yes, this creating thing is real fun. I'm going to have some more fun with this. I got mountains, I got valleys, I got seas. I have animals in the air, I have animals on land, I have animals on the water, but something is missing. And so the great Creator gathered bits of this and bits of that and bits of this and bits and that. He shaped it and he scattered it upon the mountains and the valleys and on the land. And trees sprung up. Great, mighty, tall trees began to populate all over the earth. Oh yeah, this is fun. This is fun. I like this. I like this. But then he heard discontent. And he looked down, he said, trees? What? Why are you complaining? Well, we know you didn't mean to, but the animals, they come and they go, but we're here. We can't move because that story hasn't been created yet. We're stuck here and we're lonely. So the creator took bits of this tree and bits of that tree and bits of this tree, and he called upon his angels. He said, give me my pruning shears. And the angels gave him the pruning shears, and he cut them up, and he flung and scattered the earth with the bits of trees from here and there and there and here. And they grew into flowers. And the flowers were feeling good. The flowers were very colorful. The flowers began to spring and sprang, and they were happy. Well, the trees were happy, but the flowers kind of drooped their heads and started mumbling. And the Lord said, what are you mumbling about? Well, we know you made us to keep company with the trees, and the trees are enjoying our company, but we don't have any company. There's nothing for us to talk to unless we shout at the trees, and we're lonely. Bring me my pruning shears, said the creator of all that is, was, and ever will be. And being good angels, they brought it. And he snipped a bit of this flower and snipped a bit of that flower, snipped a bit of that flower, snip, 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 and he scattered it through the four winds. And grass began to grow. And the grass grew. And the grass populated the ground. But you know what happens. The great God, the great Lord of all that is, was, and ever will be, was feeling good, but he heard mumbling. He heard discontent. He says, what now? And the grass said, well, you created the trees, then you created the flowers. The flowers talk to the trees, but they don't talk to us, and we're feeling lonely. The Lord, creator of all that is, was, and ever will be, he said, bring me my tiniest shears. And being good angels, they did. And he snipped a bit of this, snipped a bit of that, snipped a bit of this, snipped a bit of that, snipped a little grass, a little flowers, some trees, and he had all these little things that just like barely bigger than a foot, and he blew, and they scattered to the four winds, and they began to flutter. And they fluttered here, and they fluttered there, and they fluttered there. And while they were fluttering, the Lord said, I have one more animal to create, although this animal will not think of itself as an animal. And the great creator of all that was, is, and ever will be, molded himself some shapes and breathed the breath of life into them. And mankind was born. And mankind wasted no time in doing what mankind does. And soon the earth was covered with human beings, people of different colors and complexions and heights. And some were round, and some were stout, and some were tall, and some were thin. But the world became loud and glorious, and things were being built. And the creator said, now who's going to complain? But the flutterflies kept going by. And some people, and you know who I'm talking about, they have to give things complicated names. They say, oh, look at the flutterflies. Look at the flutterflies. Look at the flutterflies. And there were other people who said, flutterflies. Flutterflies. No. Look at how graceful they move. Look how smooth they are. They're like butter. And they called them butterflies. And the name quickly caught on. And so flutterflies gave way to butterflies. And now the butterflies keep the grass company, the flowers company, the trees company, and the good people company. And the butterflies have made the world not only more colorful, but have helped keep things beautiful in return. And the great Lord God, creator of all that is, was, never will be, sat back and said, that's enough. I'm taking a break. And on the seventh day, he rested, watching the butterflies. Asante.
Well, thank you, Baba. That's a lovely. And on the seventh day, God, he sat on the top of the Wenlock Edge and he drank a pint of cider that made here from Shropshire, because everybody knows that if you want to live in paradise, you come and live in Shropshire.
Well, see, from the people that told that story, they would have said he sat back and he drank himself some moonshine, but that's another story.
Yeah. Right, so we're going to go to Rona and then Donald. Are you telling a story tonight, Donald? Put your hand up if you are.
No, not tonight. I've got a really
That's
bad connect. I've already lost you once, so I won't tell tonight.
Well, that's lovely. Thank you for being here and listening. That's fine, absolutely fine. So we're going to go to Rona and then we're going to go to UB, if that's okay. Okay, Rona.
Thank you, Mike. Can I just check that there are no children listening in the background? The story would not be suitable for children. No children listening?
Excuse me, you know how innocent I am.
I know exactly how innocent
No
you are.
children here.
How long have I known you?
No, you be careful
Decades.
what you're saying, company like me, and we've got B here as a lady. You know, you just be careful, like, you know.
I know B is an absolute lady and a Scottish one at that.
Absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Well, there's no flies on her then.
Nope. Okay, here's my story. Well, he was young and he was ambitious and he was handsome. And he had already managed to start up his own business. He was a fisherman, you see, a young Japanese fisherman. And he didn't just fish for fish. No, that would have been too common for him. He wanted to do something exciting and, you know, that would win the ladies over. And he had already been won over because now he was married. His name was Takira and his lovely young bride was Harika. And the thing that made his job so dangerous was that he fished for, and I don't know if that's the right expression because he wasn't catching fish, he was catching sea urchins. And to find the sea urchins, you had to go into shark-infested waters. But that didn't worry him, despite the fact that he had to dive down under the boat to get these sea urchins. And there, sometimes, he would see the sharks coming up close, but he was quick and he was agile. And every day when he had finished his job, he would head to the temple to offer up thanks to having survived the day. And on this particular evening, like every other evening, he was approaching the temple and it was just about to be dusk. And he saw a young woman walking towards him just before the arch. He didn't recognize her. And as he went to go under the arch, she timed it perfectly to go under the arch at the exact same time. And she glanced and looked at him. And the way she looked at him was not lost on him. Those eyes, he could have swum in those eyes. They were magnificent. And as she walked away, he was tempted to turn round and look, and he couldn't stop himself. And as he turned round and looked back, so did she. And she gave him another look. Wow, this was something else. And he was so taken by this that he didn't feel that he could go into the temple and pray. Not the way his mind was racing. Oh no. He about turned and started to head for home, and he couldn't get this young woman out of his mind. And when he got home, because he was a little bit earlier, his young wife, Akiri, said to him, "Are you well, my dear?" He said, "Yes, I'm perfectly well. I've just come home a bit earlier today so that we can have a nice supper." Still, his mind was racing with that young woman's face. When he went to bed that night, he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned. Akira was fast asleep beside him. He knew this. He snuck out of bed and he headed for the temple. He thought she would be there. And guess what? He was right. She was there waiting for him. And as he approached again, he was struck by her beauty. It was absolutely incredible. And he thought, I know you, but I don't know you. I recognize you, but I don't know who you are. And just as she came closer to him, she took him by the hand and pulled him down onto the soft grass. He was so shocked, he was taken aback. And she started to caress him. First of all, she kissed him. Oh, wow, this was just incredible. This, in Japan, in those times, she would have been seen as a hussy, but she obviously didn't care. And she encouraged him all the more. And so, because of how she was, he responded, and he slid his hand up under her kimono, caressed her thighs, and went a little bit further. And all of a sudden, she slapped his hand hard. No, she said, not while you're still married. Wow. Wow. He was shocked at this. And shortly afterwards, he stood up and turned to walk away. And she pulled him towards her again and crushed her body so close to his that he could hardly breathe. Remember, she said, not while you're still married. He could hardly walk home. He was dazed. What was he to think? What was this about? Who was she? And then it dawned on him exactly who she was. She was Yuna, a mere girl. She could only have been 16 or 17 years old, but she had transformed into this incredible beauty from the little schoolgirl that he remembered. When he got home, he slipped back into bed. Akira hadn't missed him, but he couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned all night. Well, night after night, he returned to the temple, and so did she. And every time it got to the stage where he thought he was going to be able to go a little bit further, oh no, she slapped him, and she slapped him hard. Oh, this was driving him crazy. When he got back home that night, he lay awake in his bed, muttering to himself. She was actually beginning to take over his mind. Well, maybe I deserve more than what I've got. I mean, I love Akira, but she hasn't been able yet to give me a child, and we've now been married for 3 years. I want a son. I want an heir. I want somebody to take over this business that I've worked so hard to build. I deserve that. And the more he convinced himself, the more he began to believe that he didn't need her. She would have to go. If that's what it took for him to have Yuna, well, that's what it took. But he did the cruelest thing imaginable. Akira sensed the change in him. He didn't come into bed looking for her anymore. No, and he always seemed to be exhausted. Are you ill, my sweet? No, I'm fine, he said. Just working too hard at the moment. And all the time, he was plotting to do away with her. Well, as time went on, he began to court her again, like he had in the early days. Let's go for a walk, my sweet, after dinner one night. And he took her by the hand and put his other arm around her shoulder. So his hand was crossed across his body with his hand around her other side. And she just loved this. She felt close to him again. And oh, he did still love her. She had nothing to worry about. And he kissed her and he petted her. And they made love, slow, long, passionate love, as they lay by the cliffside where they had first made love. And he told her what a wonderful wife she had been. And then he stood her up and he said, "Look, my sweet, look out to sea." And of course, from that cliff, you could see across all the Japanese islands. And because it was now dark, they were lit up like a Christmas tree. "This is the most beautiful sight I have ever seen," she said. "And it's ours." He said, "Yes, my love, it is yours." And then he turned her round to face him. So she had her back to the sea. And then he said to her, "You know why I love you?" And she said, "Yes, I know. But I don't love you enough. There is another." Oh, she was stunned. "No, no," she said. "Yes," he said. "Maybe this one can give me a child." Oh, he might as well have taken a knife and stabbed her heart. "No," she said. And the next thing he did was incredible. He took his young wife and he pushed her over the cliff. Her scream could be heard for miles. Then he seemed to come to his senses. "Oh, what have I done? The people will know what I've done." And he started to run down the hill back to the village, shouting for help. "My wife, Una, she has fallen over." And he realized he had said Una, but he didn't surprise the neighbors. They all already knew what had been going on. They had seen him out at night, heading for the temple. They had seen her. There was whisperings. Everybody except poor Kira knew what was going on. So nobody felt sorry for him. Nobody believed that it had been an accident. Oh no. They thought he had murdered his young wife, and they were right. But it was what happened next that stunned him. Because when he went to speak to Una, she pushed him away. "No, no," she said, "don't be stupid. We don't want people to know what's happened. We have to wait now. We have to wait." "I couldn't stand this. I have to wait." "No, no." But he did have to wait. But he didn't wait long. 3 months later, he asked Una's parents for permission to marry her. And they were quite shocked, but nevertheless delighted, because he was an affluent young man, and they knew this, and he would make a perfect husband. They were suspicious. They also thought they had killed his young wife, but they didn't care enough. Their Una was going to make a very good match, and that was good enough for them. On the wedding day, nobody else turned up. There was only Una and Takiri and her parents and her one brother. He was disappointed in this, but he realized that the villagers no longer held any respect for him. The villagers would turn their backs when he walked by. On the wedding night, he saw his beautiful bride lay there on the futon, naked. And as she stretched over to pick up a bottle of oil from the floor, he went to lay down with her. And he said, now I am married, but I'm married to you." And he leant forward to kiss her. But the face that turned toward him was not Una. It was his beautiful young wife's face. And she said, "No, not now, not ever." And he screamed and he flew from that futon, grabbing his clothes as he ran out of there. And he ran all the way all the way up to the cliff edge. And he stood there, calling for his young wife to come back. I'm sorry, I had no idea what I was doing. I was beseeched. I just didn't know what I was doing. Come back to me, please. And she did. She stepped up onto the cliff edge and held out her arms and hugged him. He couldn't believe it. He hugged her back and she kissed him. And she said, my sweet, I knew we would always be together. She turned him around now and he had his back to the sea. She says, yes, we will always be together, but not in this life, in the next. And she pushed him over the cliff. His scream could be heard for miles. And you know, if you walk anywhere near that cliff after dark, that's all you will hear are the screams of Akira and her husband, who never should have stopped at the temple that night. Cheers.
It was lovely, Rhoda. Thank you very much. The one thing that I absolutely have to hate is doing this story round and everything else is to be the person that tells the story after you've been so good and told a story like that. So B.
Make me blush.
Yeah.
It made me blush, Mike.
Follow that, Rhoda. We have a cliff in Edinburgh called Arthur's Seat, where frequently men push their wives over the edge. I've never heard the opposite, but just last week there was a man imprisoned for murder for having pushed his wife over the edge. So yeah, so follow that. So I think we better go back to something a little bit more. Well, let's go to another creation story, but a creation story about landscape, because Scotland it's a very beautiful country, especially up in the Highlands, in the West Highlands. And thank you, Mike. And there's one particular area called Kintail. And in Kintail, there's a range of very, very beautiful mountains. They're known as the Five Sisters of Kintail. And this is the story of how they came to be there. Because there was once a farmer, and this farmer had 7 very beautiful daughters. He had a farm which lay on the banks of Loch Dewey, right over on the west coast. And the only way to get to Loch Dewey, even today, there's only one road that goes through, but in those days, the days of the story, there were no roads. So the only way to get there was either a very, very long walk over many, many high mountains, or by boat, coming in from the Irish Sea. And this farmer was really worried because, well, I mean, it was at the end of nowhere. I mean, people there was no passing trade there at all. How on earth was he going to find husbands for 7 beautiful daughters? Husbands that would be worthy of their beauty, 7 of them as well. Well, he just didn't know what he was going to do, because every day these girls got more and more and more beautiful. But one day, a huge storm blew up. The sky went dark, the wind got up, there was a howling gale. It was absolutely dreadful. And they battened down the hatches, they got the animals in, they got themselves into the farmhouse. But then suddenly, at the last minute, they saw limping into Loch Dewey was a boat. It had once been a very, very fine ship, but not anymore. It was bashed and battered. The mast was broken, the sails were in shreds, and it limped into the loch. And they all raced out. They helped to pull it into shore. And on board that ship, 2 men. Oh, they were in a sorry state as the ship was as well. They were covered in seawater and they had beards, and they looked a terrible mess. But they were taken in, they were given hospitality, And what if they'd had some food and they'd been cleaned up and being given a wee glass or two of whiskey? Well, my goodness, what beautiful young men stood in that farmhouse. The girls had never seen the like. They were tall, they had beautiful golden red hair, blue eyes, and they explained that they had come from Ireland and they'd been caught out by the storm and they'd had to take shelter in the loch. Well, all 7 girls immediately fell in love with those 2 young men. And the 2 young men, well, it has to be said that, well, they were fairly taken by the 7 girls in front of them as well. And so the farmer offered to help them repair their boat and put them up until it was done. You have no idea how long it could take to repair a boat. Everything was done so beautifully, so carefully. The men, they hammered and they put in new nails and they sawed new bits of wood and they mended the boat. And the girls, they sewed sails with stitches so fine, they could have been sewing their wedding garments. But eventually, well, the boat was finally finished. There was no more they could do, no more time to waste. And the men said that they would have to go home because their father would be worried about them. Before they left, they went to the farmer and they asked for permission to marry the 2 youngest daughters. He was delighted, of course. So were the 2 youngest daughters, but the other 5, they were horrified. And they said, oh no, father, you can't possibly let them marry the 2 youngest. They must marry the oldest, as custom dictates. So he went back to the young men and, well, the youngest one looked a bit crestfallen, but the other one said, no, they're quite right. Absolutely right. That is the custom. But you see, we are the 2 youngest of 7 brothers. And when we get home with our beautiful brides, well, our older brothers will want to come and claim the others. And so, well, it wouldn't be right for us to marry the older 2. So that being the case, the 2 young girls were married to the 2 Irish young men, and off they sailed to a new life in Ireland. The other 5, they waited for their bridegrooms to come and claim them. They waited all summer. Summer turned into autumn, winter, spring, the next summer, but no ship came sailing from Ireland. The father began to get worried, and well, news by that time had spread a wee bit about their beauty, and young men kept coming and offering their hand in marriage, but the girls looked at them and said, oh, they're so small. Look at their hair, it's all dark, not beautiful, gold like our bridegrooms. No, and they're poor farmers. Why should we marry poor farmers while our sisters are queens in Ireland? No, we will wait. Well, the years went by and the girls weren't getting any younger, neither was the farmer. And one day he went up to ask for help from the grey magician who lived up in the mountains and Corriginnet. And the magician said he would come down and talk to the girls. And the next day he came down and he said, look, I have looked in my pool in the corrie. And I tell you now, there are no such young men. You are waiting for shadows. You must marry now and keep yourself safe from the world. But the girls said, no, we will wait. Why should we marry poor farmers, small men? No. We will wait. One of them said she had seen her lover's reflection in the water. Another one had dreamt of him. They knew that they would come. And eventually the magician went back up to the mountain. The years passed. Eventually the farmer, who was growing old, he went up and spoke to the magician again. Magician came down and they talked long into the night over the peat fire and the bottle of whiskey. The magician went back up the mountain, and 2 or 3 days later, the farmer died. Back he came, and he said to the girls, "Before your father died, he put you in my protection. I ask you now, will you marry? Will you keep yourself safe from the world?" And the girls said, "No, we will wait." "Very well," he said. "In that case, you leave me no option but to turn you into mountains. And in that way, your beauty will be preserved for life, but you will be safe from the evils and dangers of this world." And he sat them at the head of Loch Dewey, looking over towards Ireland. And there they still sit, the 5 sisters of Kintail, still waiting to this very day for those bridegrooms from Ireland that they hope one day will still come. Thank you.
Oh, B, that was lovely. Thank you very much. That was a lovely story, well told. And I was joshing before, but you are definitely the one person who could follow Rona. Absolutely. Right, so I'm going to call a break now for 5 minutes. This is the custom I've come with because the stories have been going on for a bit longer. I'm happy to sit here until everybody who wants to tell a story has told a story like I always do. I'm going to give ourselves 5 minutes so you can top your glasses up, go to the toilets or whatever you're going to do. And then I've got 4 more. There's Fluella, Norman, Mike and Valentina. And if those people want to tell a story, we will sit here for as long as I've talked to the young chap from Marrakesh and I know what's happening there. Okay, so give me 5 minutes and I'll be back.
B, that was a lovely story. I've not heard that before. It was really great.
Have you not?
No, I heard something similar, but not similar enough. No, it was quite different actually. And maybe it was the way you told it as well, but it was lovely, absolutely.
That particular version is from, well, it's my version, but it's based on one of the Otter Swire books,
Yeah.
from her Highland stories.
I tell something about 7 brothers, and it's almost like a reverse of that. They're looking for wives, but there's no boats involved. It all happens on dry land.
I've heard that story before, but I love the way you told it.
Yeah, it's
You
lovely.
know, now you've got me wanting to be romantic, and Rona has me not wanting to turn the lights off. So I don't know what I'm going to do. But fortunately, it's still daylight. It's only almost 3 p.m. on this side. No, it's a little after 3 in the afternoon on this side. So I don't have to be worried about things that go bump in the night. But between the romantic story and the spooky story, I think I'll go have lunch.
There's a version of that story where it has a kind of a motif in it, that one from the Ural Mountains. And there used to be, I think, I keep on getting the number wrong, but I do believe 7 suns in the sky, or was it 3? Anyway, there's
It was 7. Norm.
7, yeah.
Yeah, one of the people told it 1001 once.
Yeah.
And it was 7.
Yes. The story that I tell, Norman, is I think that's where I heard it from one of my students in Russia. It's a long time ago, maybe 10 years ago or something. So this is the problem with me. I never remember anything, especially since I had the brain hemorrhage. My mind is just fog.
The same.
But Rona, you have the gift of being able to tell stories. So that is what counts. At least I mean that as a blessing and every kindness that it can be said. You have the ability to tell, and that's great. And that means you have purpose, and that means that you have identity and self-awareness. And I say that my mom suffered from dementia in her later years. And sometimes she would have clarity and she would look at us and she would say with great empathy, emotion, that a person has the right to know who they are. And Rona, you know who you are. You're a teller of tales.
Sometimes I know. Sometimes I know who I am.
Well,
But
it takes a lot to make me. It takes a lot. The way you told that story is what made it so spooky.
yeah.
Yeah, it
I'm
was
turning-
spooky. It was like,
I'm turning on another light.
Well, I was being careful because the young man who's joined us from
Marrakesh.
WSTC, yeah, from Marrakesh. I didn't want to. I don't know. I just felt maybe it would be a bit, because usually it's a lot more kind of saucy.
Yes.
So I cut it
I mean,
back
oh,
a wee bit
really?
and made it a wee bit. I made it a wee bit more spooky rather than a bit more saucy.
but you know what? The tone of your voice really does suit the spooky. 'Cause
Yes.
you're good at the spooky
Well, that's
stories.
the problem, Valentina, because what I do then is I scare myself. I live alone, so I won't be switching the lights off tonight. I'll
Right,
be lying
so-
there thinking, oh, why did I turn
Can
off?
I just say thank you to B? I was going to put this in the chat, but I want to just say thank you because I think I've heard that story before, but so long ago that it had gone. And you have jogged a memory, and thank you for that. Because that was beautiful. So thank you.
Oh,
And
thanks,
B,
guys.
in the chat, I commented that your story was beautiful. So
Thank you. I did tell it on Once Upon a Wednesday, but it must be 2 years ago, Janet, I think. I haven't told it since, so I hope I
haven't-
got it right.
Well, it doesn't matter whether it was right or wrong. It was beautiful. And
yes,
I
Yeah,
could
absolutely.
see,
Yeah,
I could
because you
see those
have,
mountains.
Yeah,
Well, I
you
love
have a beautiful voice, B.
landscape stories.
That
You
was,
ever
that was
travel-
wonderful. Yeah.
Do you ever
You have a
travel south
beautiful
of-
voice, B. I think,
I
Yeah.
think
as well
Mike's
you
trying to
have that
regain control.
little-
Oh.
yeah.
B, do you ever travel south of the border to tell stories?
Sorry, Mike?
Do you ever travel south of the border to tell stories?
I haven't done for quite a while, no, but I'm always up for it.
Oh, right, good. Right.
Yeah,
Well,
you
well,
should.
we
I think
can-
your name's just gone on a list, B.
All right.
Yeah, what we've got to do is we're going to have to tell Kath about you. Janet and I work it really well because we don't have anything to do with Who Books, so we just blame Kath. So we'll get you, we'll mention you to Kath. We know Kath. We know where she lives. You're all right.
We know
so-
her number, yes.
Right, so I've got 4 more. So I've got Fluella, Norman, Mike, and Valentina. Out of those 4, Fluella, are you telling a story tonight? Put your hand up. Yeah, yeah. So you go first after the break. Yeah. So you go for the next story. Is that okay?
Yes.
Right,
And,
Mike,
and
are you
I-
telling one? Mike, are you telling one tonight? Yeah, Mike, you go second. Norman, we are going to meet on a train station in Telford, this week.
That's good to know. Yeah, Amy's been in touch with me.
Yeah.
It seems I can't quite get the hang of the schedules.
Don't worry, it's easy because we don't have schedules because we don't have many buses. So don't worry about it.
Captain asking me for you have entered the incorrect search terms.
Yeah. You don't talk Shropshire, that's right. Someone will pick you up from the station. Okay, so that'll be fine.
We'll take it
So
when
you,
it
are
happens.
you telling a story
Yes.
tonight?
Yeah.
You'll go 3. So we go Fluella, Mike, Norman, Valentina. Are you doing one tonight, or are you?
No, I'm just listening. It's just lovely to hear all
Right.
these wonderful stories. Thank you.
Well, it's like I said, we do the festival every year, and hopefully you can come over one year and
I
come
would
to the
love
festival.
to. I would love
have
to.
you got because we have dogs on the site. So have you got a seeing eye dog that comes with you?
No.
No.
No, I prefer to have people talk to me rather than my dog. So I don't know.
Yes, you can't call them blind dogs because the dog can see. I've been told that before.
No, this blind person creates enough problems herself, right, Norm? You know me.
Oh, yes. By the
Right.
way, there are special dogs for those who like to be smoke grass all the time. They're called seeing high dogs.
Well, you know what?
Norman, Norman, you shouldn't have told that to Baba, because Baba's going to be using that for the next
know.
5 years.
Yes, I know he will hijack it, but he always does.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
yeah.
yes.
Right, so we're going to go to Fluella, and then we're going to go to Mike, and then we're going to go to Norman. Now, Fluella, just remind me, you're from the Argentine?
I am from Peru.
Peru, sorry, I'm the next country over. Right, and so you're going to tell us a story from your mother country, or from one from away?
I wrote this story, so this is a story from my heart.
Okay, Karen.
Okay, so when a baby is born, the baby receives gifts. Each baby receives different gifts, and the gifts are seeds. Everyone receives unique seeds and very special, as unique as the babies are. So this is a story about a little girl. She received 4 seeds. One of them was the seed of love. It was strongly rooted on her soil, on a beautiful and colorful soil. The second seed was the seed of hope. It was strongly rooted in a colorful and green soil. That seed that made her look with great expectation, whatever could happen, with a big smile, thinking about the future, thinking about the next minute, even the next year. And the third seed was the seed of hope, the seed of dreams. So she dreamed a lot about what could happen next. And the fourth seed, can you guess what seed could be the fourth seed?
Seed of love.
Yeah,
kindness.
A mix of kindness and love. Thank you. It was the seed of road, because every one of us has a unique road. So the fourth seed was the seed of road. So she didn't see her seeds, but she knew something special was inside her, beating very, very loud inside her, in her heart. She could feel that. So she knew that something very beautiful could happen. And her first years of life were like that, with a lot of love, dreams, hope, and a beautiful road. But suddenly, something happened. The seeds were dying, one by one. First, the soil lost its beautiful color. It turned to a dark and a black color. And after, the seeds were disappearing one by one. Perhaps it could be the voices of the outside that became one with her own voice, the voices that she heard, and those voices that told her that she was not good enough, or maybe that she was in the wrong, those were dreams, like dreams of a child, and the seeds were dying. So seasons passed, summer, autumn, spring, and again seasons passed. So one day she was walking and she saw the leaves like blowing away without any resistance. And she said to herself, maybe life is like that. We are like leaves, blowing away without having any direction. And many years and many months happened like that. Until one day, tired of the darkness, she went to a beautiful field. She saw the most beautiful tree there and just sit. And she saw the same is in. The leaves blowing away and blowing away. And while she was thinking about that, a grandfather came, approached to herself without saying any word. And he took her hands and placed her hands in the trunk of the tree. In that moment, she realized that she was not a leaf. She was not a dying leaf. She was a trunk. She was the trunk of the tree. And then she felt her seeds alive, like the tree. Thank you.
How lovely. What a lovely story. Thank you very much. That's really nice of you. Right. So just before we finish with, by far, never the least, never the last, Norman and Mike, I'm looking forward to your stories to we'll finish up with. Has anybody got any notices or village notices, we call them? Has anybody, you've all heard that we're having a festival over here. Mike, you've got your hand up if you want to tell us about something you're doing in your neck of the woods.
It's not something I'm doing, but Jasna May, who you will know from the Tuesday Storytelling, is in England at the moment. She will be at the festival, but she's also looking for opportunities to tell above and beyond that in schools, either in person or on Zoom. So if anyone's got any contacts that could use her, she would really love it. But yes, she will be at the festival.
Yeah. Right. Do you know what age she is now?
She's 13.
13.
She's 13.
Yeah.
Right. Because we've got Rian van der Mask over, and she's going into the schools. And so maybe Jasmine could go in with Rian.
That would be good.
Right? Because what we're trying to do is mix cultures up. The people come from different cultures of all kinds, just mix them up and get them into one place. And that's one of the things we like doing. So we'll see if we can do that. Okay. Anybody else got any parish notices? Rona, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm going to Italy on Thursday, as I said, but I'm going to be doing a Zoom on Tuesday night. If anybody's interested, just text me or email me for the link. It's
So, Zoom for who?
41.
Zoom for who?
Zoom for anybody that wants to join it.
For the World Storytelling Cafe or for somebody else?
No, just for me. I do regular Kaylee's, Mike, so just one of my own. Yeah, and so anybody who wants to join would be very, very welcome. I've heard some lovely stories tonight.
I might be in the caravan up on the site by then. I'm not sure.
Oh, you will be. Yeah, most of you will be doing that.
So,
but anybody that's available, just email me for the link. I'll put it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So John Rowe gave me the ups and ups of what's coming up. So the next thing's coming up Tuesday, as always, we have the Young International Storytellers, and that would be 5 p.m. British time. And on Friday, there's this rumor going around that a certain griot dressed in black and white, pointing at himself, will be telling stories for children this Friday. And I think that rumor is very true. And I believe that is 6 p.m. British time. So Tuesday, we invite you to join us at 5 p.m. for Young International Storytellers, and Friday at 6 p.m. British time for this guy called Baba C. I hear he's a great storyteller, but I've never seen him perform.
Right, so the other thing we do is get a word online. So our concert to do with the festival will be Thursday evening at 8 o'clock. Amy Douglas sorted out, and I am ashamed to say I've got no idea who she's booked, but there'll be artists from the festival this year. And it's a get a word online. It starts at 8 o'clock and it goes on for a couple of hours. And I will try to find a pub somewhere where I can get a computer and watch it for myself, but we'll see how we go. But we do that. I'm not sure if we're going to continue doing those. We get regularly, we get 40 to 50 people come to those. But it's got to self-finance somewhere along the way, and it's not quite doing it. So we'll see how we get on with those. And so Valentina, that would be a really good one for you. Okay, it's 8 o'clock on a Thursday evening, And if you're on benefits and stuff like that, it's just a donation will do to log into that. But that would be a lovely, they are lovely concerts and they really are worth listening to. Okay.
So can I tell you guys my email address? Because I've wanted to contact you before and I'm having a hard time accessing it on chat. So
Right.
if, like Rona, I'd love to have your email address so that I could connect to some of what you do. So my email is real easy to remember. It's Valentina Storywriter, all one word, Valentina Storywriter @gmail.com. And I'd be happy to hear from any or all of you.
Valentina Storywriter @gmail.com. Right, grand. I've got that, Valentina. I'll be in touch.
Thanks.
Right, I'll be in touch as well. That'll come from it'll come from Mike at Get a Word in Edgeways, Valentina. Okay, so that's me. Okay, I'll do it for
Hey, Mike,
Yeah.
can I Google Get a Word in Edgewise and get sent to the proper link?
Yeah. Get a Word in Edgeways.
Edgeway.
Get a Word in
Edgeways.
Yeah, Get a Word in Edgeways. Okay.
Edgeways. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Google the site and everything else. So the other thing that we are arranging is on the 20th of November, 2022, I'm going to be doing this concert from Marrakesh.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
so I'm going to sit in the World Storytelling Cafe. Now, anybody who wants to come, once you're there, it'll be the Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So you fly in on the Friday, come back, fly out again on the Monday. I think we can organise a hotel accommodation for you and food. And I'll buy you a drink myself if you're there. Okay. That's not a problem at all. So anybody who wants to come, the people I am looking at are the regular people who actually come to my gig, sort of that. And I don't want to go in February. The great and the good are all going to be there in February. Taffy Thomas is going in February. Everybody's going in February. Amy Douglas is going to go first, so I'm not going. But I'm just going to have a small little a gathering of my mates, and we're going to sit in the World Storytelling Cafe itself and do a story round and zoom it out. So you're all invited. If you can make it, please come. Okay. Right. So I'm going to go Mike first and then Norman second. So over to you, Mike. And then Norman, you're going to finish up for us tonight. Okay, mate?
That would be brilliant. A lovely strong finish. This not so strong. Mike was talking about culture, and I thought I'd give us a cultural tale, an epic from the annals of King Arthur. It was a dark and stormy night. The lightning was flashing, the rain was pouring down. Sir Lancelot and Sir Percival were on a quest. They'd been on a quest for a very, very long time. It wasn't going well. They were drenched, their armour was getting rusty, their surcoats were plastered to it, and they were so pleased to see a hovel with a green bush over the door. An inn, they're saved. And they dragged themselves along to the inn, and they gave their horses to the ostler to sort out, and went in, dripping all over the floor. And the innkeeper came up and said, "How can I help you, sir?" And Lancelot said, "Well, I like Shropshire, but this is ridiculous." He said, "I'm soaking wet. I need a hot meal." And Sir Percival said, "And do you have a room for 2 nights?" We got there.
I was not expecting that.
So the other one of the Knights of the Round Table, because he should have turned up, he was quite a jolly man. He was 24 stones and he was big and he was round and he needed a very big horse to cart him around, and he was called Circumference.
I feel better about mine now, Mike. Thank you.
Those
Right,
were both
Norman,
Baba
to finish
C.
this.
worthy.
Oh,
That's a
dear.
compliment.
I thought the punchline would be the knight shows up, same soggy night, etc., and he's looking for his horse is tired, and he finds out that they only have large dogs. And he said, I wouldn't send a knight out on a dog like this. I forgo all the rest of the story.
I've started something. I did not intend it. but yes.
Right.
Yeah, well,
we're not going to finish. Come on,
There's
Norman.
a
We're not
lot
going to. We're not going to finish on that. So you're going to have to tell us a different story.
I have this one doesn't have a knight in it. In fact, it's a little more serious. Here in Canada, we had a leader who, by the name of Jack Layton, who unfortunately died far too young of cancer. Mike was a person who reveled in politics and in the most positive way. He could get people, the sort of, you throw him in a pack of fighting people and he'd have them all working together before too long, because he was one of those people who was very, very persuasive. And before he became and he was the leader of the NDP, and we thought that he might lead the NDP to the leadership of Canada, and he died too soon for that. So anyways, years before this, I was asked to compose a story for Jack and his wife at a fundraiser for the food bank. And it's a short story, so but I feel that it epitomizes the much of what was good in Jack and what he saw the good in other people. Long time ago, there was a land where there was famine. There was hunger everywhere. And people looked to their leaders for help. Now, the leaders didn't know what to do, but they'd heard a story. They'd heard a story called the Bowl of Plenty. Now, the Bowl of Plenty, it was said, was whatever you needed when you reached into the bowl, you could get it. And therefore, it was called the Bowl of Plenty. But for some reason, it had been shattered into 1,000 pieces many, many years ago, when they said some people fighting over it. And the pieces had scattered, and many countries and many places all claimed to have a true piece of the true Bowl of Plenty. And so, not knowing what else to do, the king of that country and the queen sent out people far and wide to find the pieces of the Bowl of Plenty and bring them back together, reassemble the bowl, and perhaps that would be enough. And so they all went out, many hundreds and hundreds of people, and they all came back with a piece of the Bowl of Plenty, or so they said. But each piece was a different shape and color, and no matter how they tried, none of them fitted together. But an old woman came to the kingdom and said, "Give me all of the pieces of the bowl, and I will remake the Bowl of Plenty." Not knowing what else to do, they gave them to her, loaded onto a big cart, and the cart went creak, creak, creak into the forest where she lived. And a month, 2 months, 3 months passed, and she came back. And on the wagon, there was this huge bowl. It was magnificent. She had reassembled all of the pieces into a mosaic bowl. There were scenes of people playing, animals playing in forests full of trees, birds flying in the sky. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was empty. And the king asked the old woman, with hundreds of people surrounding them, King asked the old woman, "Is this the Bowl of Plenty?" "Yes," said the old woman. "It is the Bowl of Plenty." "Well, then how do we get something out of it?" "Oh," she said, "that's very easy. You get something out of it by putting something in." And that's the Bowl of Plenty.
Yeah.
Face mute currently
And
muted.
that's a plenty good story. It bowled me over.
For heaven's sake.
Right.
So, yeah, and by the way, that epitomizes what Jack, as part of what Jack's philosophy was. We have to put something in to get something out. We don't always know what it will be, But
You've got to put something in before you get something out, and what goes round comes round.
yeah,
So the more you push good things out, more good things will go round and round and round, and maybe one will land on you one day. But just keep pushing good things out all the time, and someday the world will be a better place.
yeah.
Hey, Mike R. I just want to say you're pretty good at this. I just want to compliment you. You're pretty good at this. You make all of us work. You make all you are the bowl of plenty, and you get all of us to bring out something great. So thank you, sir. Because we thank Ali and we thank everybody else, but I don't remember the last time we thanked you. So on behalf of the others, thank you. Asante Sana, thank you very much.
Well, it's very, very nice of you, Baba, but I've been doing this now since the beginning of the pandemics and everything else. I used to run a storytelling club in my local town here for 30 odd years. And people say to me, how do you know all these stories, Mike? Well, I sit down once a fortnight and I listen to everybody's stories and I nick the ones I want and go and tell them. I travel around, but now we have a festival where all the great storytellers are coming to us, and I hope to see you all there one day. I can see many faces on my screen this evening, and I can see some of them will be booked at the festival and some that will come and help us run it, emceeing it and things. And others like Norman, who was traveling many, many miles. I think you're just coming to help out a little bit, but we'll certainly sit down and you and I'll have a pint in the best pudding shop you made.
Yes,
absolutely, and it's on me.
I'm getting jealous, guys. I'm getting jealous. I wish I could come. So it sounds like so much fun. And my concern is that you mentioned the pandemic at the beginning, and as a person who is in a small town and can't get to very many places, these Zoom things have saved my life. So I hope you don't discontinue the Zoom meetings, because some of us are finding they're life changers, really.
But there's lots of us, Valentina, who, you know, years ago we'd have said, oh, you can't tell stories on computers, everything else. But what we've learned, if there is a silver cloud into the pandemic and all the stuff that's gone on and everything else, the silver cloud is that we found a way of getting to our people who are disadvantaged or disabled, whatever you want to call them, one way or another. And we can sit them. You don't have to go out and get in a taxi and travel 20 miles and go to a theatre and come back again. We can reach out, and with the feedback we're getting from that into some of the communities that we've reached into, Keith's Stories of Lincolnshire and Janet there, and Norman who's coming over, and Mike, Baba and Fluella, be up in Scotland there. We all think the same. And
it's amazing because, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but I want to get this story in because this shows you the power of the connections you can make with Zoom. I live in central Canada, like around Toronto, not far from Toronto. And I have been talking to a woman on Zoom at different meetings. I kept running into her. And I went to visit my old piano teacher, who is 101. But she lives on the coast, on the east coast of Canada. So I wrote to Eleanor and I said, do you know if there's an inn or a hotel or something close to where this lady lives? And she says, oh, we have 3 cats, 9 stairs, and an accessible shower. You can, if that suits, come. And I had the most wonderful time meeting her and some other storytellers in Halifax that I would never have connected with had it not been for Zoom. It's just marvelous. And I met you guys, which is, I haven't been coming as often as I'd like, but I do feel that I know you now. And
well, we all, yes, absolutely. You know us. You know us well enough to get a jar out, stick it on the mantelpiece and start putting $1 in from time to time.
Every day,
one day there'll be enough money in there for you to fly over and you to come and visit us.
Oh, I think it will come. And
we'd be delighted.
To know you.
Okay,
hey, Mike.
Yeah.
She just reminded me of something about the influence and touch that we have via Zoom and in person. So I don't want to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, but a boy that I've been working with since he was 3 with the kids and cultural camp. He's now 10. And at their summer session, he came to me, he said, I've been reading fables. I want to tell stories to the children. That's the other children in the camp. And he's been playing the djembe, which is a type of drum. So to last Wednesday was his premiere for telling stories to the other campers. And he was so magnificent, I was almost struck speechless. But if you had seen him performing, you would have known that he was one of my students, because he did things that I do with the audience, pulling them out, assigning them animals, giving them parts. I'm just saying that because we have a lot of influence through Zoom and in person. And we're bringing, whether we are aware of it or not, we're bringing the next generations into bloom, into flowering. So I just wanted to share that. Thank you. And thank you, Valentina.
Yes, we all know we do this, and it's all part of common ground. And it's getting people talking to each other and getting people meeting to each other from different cultures and different places and everything else, So anyway.
Okay, then, and thank you, Mike. By the way, I have to get going myself, but I wanted to say you've given me an idea for what the story I told tonight means. In a way, this is another way of a mosaic of people creating a bowl.
It's your bowl of plenty, Norm.
What?
It's your bowl of plenty, because I needed something. I reached into the bowl of plenty, and I got way more than I asked for, way more. And that's what it is. You never know when you have a need and you can reach in. You never know what you're going to get. And usually,
that's what it's for, Valentina.
Yeah.
Reach in and pick out what you need. That's what it's for. There's enough people around putting stuff in at the moment.
Yeah.
Reach
so
out.
I have to say thank you, because I have to get going, because I got this trip I got to get ready for. I'm leaving in 3 days.
Oh, well, good.
Norman,
Safe travels.
Right,
Yes.
I'm going to make you a promise, Norman, okay?
Okay.
I'm going to a pub called the George and Dragon in Much Wenlock now. You and I'll have a pint in there.
Oh, for sure.
For sure. Okay.
I've been running across Wenlock
Get to the
all
airport
over the
early.
place.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll love it. And B, I would love to buy you a drink in there one time as well at some point.
Oh, I would love it too.
Yeah,
Mike, that'd
absolutely.
be fab.
But I've got a feeling.
Be very careful. Be
B,
very careful with that invitation, because it becomes a habit.
Oh. Well, I haven't been drinking any alcohol for months, because I've just had a hip replaced, and the arthritis, alcohol was setting off the arthritic pain, and I couldn't drink at all. So now I've got a new hip, and boy, am I making up for it! I tell you.
Well, I can tell you. I can tell you, you could have a drink.
Yeah, and
you could
Janet
have a drink with
will
most
understand
people.
what I'm saying. Is that next time you come south of the border, it might well not be Much Wenlock. It could well be Whitby in Yorkshire. I think you'd be absolutely suited to be in Whitby in Yorkshire.
You would.
The audience
I'd love to. Love to come.
And I tell you, B, you could have worse company than Mike Rust. I've had some great nights with Mike.
I'm sure.
There's great storytellers there. There's Taffy Thomas is there, and there's Dave Tong and all sorts of other storytellers there. Right, I'm going to call it there. I'll see you in a fortnight's time, unless I'm going to see you in the flesh this week. Put the 20th of November in your diaries. If you can manage to make it, I know it's not the great festival and everybody wants to be famous and everything. That's the one in February. But I'm just gonna go, and I'm gonna sit in the storytelling cafe, and I'm gonna tell a few stories, and I'm looking forward to it. The 20th of November. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Until the next time, to be continued.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
F4, end meeting or leave meeting.
Oh,
Thank
wow,
you.
this has been great. I'm turning on another light, Rona.
Fabulous.
I love that.
Take
I usually
care.
don't. I will. You're
All right,
the
my dear.
goosebumps of, Goosebumps?
Yes, I know
The-
Goosebumps.
You're the goosebumps of this meeting. And that's a compliment. I mean, that's a compliment. All
Oh,
right.
thank you. That's very kind.
right.
Nice to see you, young man. You take care too. Okay.
And one
Bye.
day we'll learn your name.
What is your name? Oh, he's gone. No, he hasn't. Both young men, actually. Thanks, guys, for hosting. Take care.
Thank you, Rona. Thank you, Baba.
See you soon. Bye-bye.
My pleasure, my honor.
Oh, it's
Thank
Ali.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you,
can see
Ali.
you now.
Who's the other youngster, Ali?
Hmm?
Who's the other youngster, the one in the cafe?
Yeah, he's a new colleague from the World Storytelling Cafe.
Does he have a name?
قول له اسمي كذا.
كتسمعني؟
Yeah.
My name is Walid.
Say it again.
Walid.
Walid.
Wally. Ah,
Wally. Okay.
nice to
Wally.
see you, Walid.
It's good seeing you.
Take care,
All right.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you so
See
much.
soon.
See you out. See you
Thank
Tuesday.
you. Bye.
Bye.
فينا برافو.
اخويا
انا بصح ماشي كيتسمع ليا من هنا في راسك.
تسمع صاحبي.
مبرونشي مع هذا مع